Well, hello, welcome everybody to 10 Steps to Home Ownership. I'm excited to go through some information with you on what to look for when you're buying your home, either whether it's your first home or your 10th home. There's a lot of steps to it. And of course, we're here to help you at Ace Realty, and the realtors can walk you through it every step of the way. I was excited to see Jamie Olson from American Bank and Trust register. And so I asked her if she would be willing to kind of share some perspective from the lending side. So we're going to tag team and go through the process because it definitely involves both the realtor and the lender working very closely together to make sure that that buyer makes it to the closing table without any hiccups along the way. So Jamie, would you like to say a few words and introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Angie. My name is Jamie Olson, and I am a mortgage loan officer with American Bank and Trust. I've been with American Bank and Trust for 10 years, and there's been a lot of change in the industry in that amount of time. So this should be very helpful for people who listen to different things on the street or maybe hear something from a neighbor or a relative. Angie's got some good information here for you today, and she can help shine some light on the home buying process.
Well, and I am a broker owner here at Ace Realty. I have been involved in real estate for a long time. I got licensed about 30 years ago, actually, and took a little bit of break when my kids were young, took a break from selling, but am now back at it for quite a few years now and leading a team of realtors. And we just are very proud of all that we have to offer here at Ace Realty. So that's where we, put the number one team to work for you. 10 steps to home ownership. Let's see what they are. So a lot of times people will end up coming to us first as realtors, and that's great. We want to talk to them, because the exciting part is looking at the houses and seeing what's out there. Sometimes just the money part isn't as fun, but that's where Jamie's going to kind of come in and help us navigate through that, because sometimes it can be very overwhelming to buy a house, especially in these times when we have such limited inventory. If you are not ready to go and you are not pre-approved with a lender, your offer most likely is going to get glossed over. And we as realtors, we're going to make sure that you get pre-approved and you meet with the lender, because otherwise there's just no point. We don't even know what price point you want to look at. So that is the first step, is knowing that you're financially ready. And then there's some myths out there, and that's where I want Jamie to jump in. One myth is you have to have 20% down payment. Completely not true. You need to have perfect credit and you need to be debt free, all which are not true. So Jamie, help shed us some light on those three myths.
Okay, sure. So, very first off, with the down payment, you absolutely can put 20% down, but it is not required in all situations. There are a lot of good programs that may allow you to borrow 100% of the purchase price. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes. Yep. You're
Okay.
good.
We do have some programs that allow you to borrow 100% of the purchase price. We have programs that allow you to borrow 97% of the purchase price and 96.5% of the purchase price. And then there is a conventional loan program where you can borrow 95%. There is mortgage insurance required when you finance above 80%, but a lot of times it can be very affordable. So don't let the mortgage insurance aspect scare you. Another thing that Angie mentioned was you absolutely don't have to have perfect credit to purchase a home. We work with FHA quite frequently, and people who have had credit issues in the past and have started to repair it, the FHA is a little bit more lax on credit. Most of our programs are gonna gonna require at least a 620, but a lot of people will think that their credit is a lot worse than it is. So it's always good to have a lender check things out and kind of see where you're sitting for real. You might get your credit score from a free credit reporting agency, and it's not exactly what a bank would pull. Angie, can you remind me of that last topic that you had there?
Sure. That you need to be debt free.
Okay. You also don't need to be debt free. You don't need to worry about having student loans or having a vehicle loan. Those things actually help you build credit. And I know that there is a negative kind of tone to credit card debt, but if you're thinking about buying a house and you have some credit card debt, I wouldn't necessarily suggest paying that off before you get pre-qualified, because sometimes having that credit builder there will actually help get you into a home. And the payments on credit card debt are usually pretty low. So if you can save your available cash, then that's going to help you go a little bit further than paying off those low payment debts.
And sometimes we run into people who just don't have any credit established
Right.
at all. So I
Right.
would assume that credit card's a good way to get that started.
It sure is. And we also have ways of proving non-traditional credit, and it depends on which loan program we take you towards. But with non-traditional credit, we can use bills that are in your name that have positive payments for the last 12 months. A lot of times we can use a cell phone bill, maybe a utility bill, or vehicle insurance. Those are the common ones that we use to prove non-traditional credit. So even if you think that there's no hope, it's still advantageous to speak with a lender, and hopefully we can find something that's going to work out really well for you.
And maybe it doesn't work out right now today, but you could get them on the right path for 6 months from now or 3 months from now.
Absolutely. We can set up a credit plan and get you going on the right path.
Great, great. So 10 steps to home ownership. These are the steps that we kind of came up with. One, know when you're ready to buy a house. And part of that is what Jamie and I have been talking about. You don't know for sure if you're ready. Maybe you need to help build that credit and so forth. But so it might take a little due diligence to find out if you're ready to buy a house. Of course, contact your favorite Ace Realty realtor. Get pre-approved, and we want you to work with a local lender like Jamie. We just really frown upon out-of-state lenders and some of those big companies that it's really difficult to work with them sometimes because they're so big. They're like, yep, I think that's been ordered. And then we find out later it hasn't been because that's a whole different department or whatever. It's just really nice when we can keep it all here in Huron, where we all work really well together. And it's always nice to be able to just pick up the phone and call Jamie if we need to find out what exactly is going on or how can we help. Because we are both there, you and your lender and the realtor all work as a team to make sure we can get to the closing table without a lot of stress. It's stressful enough just buying a house when everything goes perfectly. So get pre-approved, and that's what we've been talking a little bit about. Develop, kind of what your criteria is and what your budget is. So with the interest rates going all over the place, specifically up quite often, it might be hard to set a budget, but I'm assuming you're seeing some people, Jamie, with the interest rates increasing where they've had to shift their budget and their expectations a little bit and perhaps lower their price range so that it can match a little bit of increase in interest rate.
Yes, that's right. And one thing that I keep reminding borrowers of is, yes, there is an interest rate here, and yes, it is higher than it was 2 or 3 years ago, but ultimately you need to be able to be comfortable with the payment. So even if the rates are at 2% and you're borrowing money to purchase a house, if you're not comfortable with that payment, it wouldn't matter if the rate was low or high, because it has to fit into your budget. And sometimes what the bank will allow you to spend and what you want to spend or feel comfortable spending are two different things. So definitely make a budget and decide what you're comfortable with.
We do hear that quite a bit. They're like, whoa, we've been approved for this amount, but we don't want to spend anywhere close to that. Which is nice to hear, because people are conservative and they don't want to be house poor. So that's good to know. And it's kind of a mentality of our area and the people here in the Midwest. So we want to develop that criteria, get a budget, because then once we know what you're pre-approved for, that's what we're, as realtors, going to take you out to those properties, rather than take you out to properties that maybe don't fit your budget, and then you're going to be disappointed because maybe that was really nice and now you have to lower your budget a little bit. So once we have that criteria, the budget, the pre-approval letter, then we're going to start home shopping, which of course is the fun part for buyers typically. Maybe not as fun as what it has been in the past, with not very many houses on the market. And I know, we've been super busy when we get new listings, and I know, Jamie, it's probably the same for you, because they're like, I need that pre-approval letter, or I need that right away. It's just kind of nonstop, isn't it?
Yes, it sure is. And we're pretty lucky in the Huron market. It kind of seems like once the weather warmed up, it was kind of like a switch flipped on. And there's been lots of great listings that have popped up. But that's truly what's happening, is they're popping up and then they're getting snagged right away. So it is 100% recommended. If you're thinking about purchasing, definitely get pre-qualified. The pre-qualification process is not painful. The lender is going to ask you questions, but it's going to be things that you know off the top of your head. So getting pre-qualified is fairly quick and painless, and it's gonna move mountains for you once you start actually home shopping.
One thing that I'd like to say is that, could you tell us a little bit about the difference between pre-qual and pre-approval? Because I know it's confusing for buyers, and it's really confusing for sellers too. We always try to explain, pre-qual, you're just running their credit and taking the numbers at face
Right.
value for what they give you, correct?
Yes, that's right. So we have an application and we ask borrowers about their employment, about their income, assets, things like that. And what they enter on that application, we are taking at face value. We don't think that they're intentionally deceiving us in any way, but that income, that employment, none of that has been verified. We're just taking the borrower's word for it that this is what they've got going on with their situation. So the pre-qualification, while we do ask questions and we try to be pretty thorough, it truly is just kind of a first glance at the actual loan itself. Now, once we get, and we do pull credit, so that's right away, that's one of the biggest, most important pieces. We do pull credit, and we try to get specific on income. If you're a self-employed borrower, we're going to snag your tax returns from you right away and have an underwriter go through them so that we know that we have a good income figure to work with. But once we get a purchase agreement and the loan process actually gets underway, that's when we start working towards an approval. That's when we order an appraisal and title insurance along with a survey in most cases. Those three things have to be approved by underwriting as well. And there's certain things that can pop up within these things. Sometimes we can work around them pretty quickly along with the help of your realtor. Sometimes they take a little more work. And then there are some things that sometimes are just a deal breaker. Like if you overstated your income, if you're using income that we're not able to use as part of the repayment process. we do have some hiccups along the way, but we do try to look out for those right away in the beginning so that we don't have any negative surprises along the way.
Okay, for sure. So during this process, so tell me, like right when, like let's say we send you a purchase agreement. So what's that first thing you're going to do after you get the accepted purchase agreement from us as realtors?
Okay, so once I get the accepted purchase agreement from a realtor, I immediately begin drafting bank disclosure forms. These forms are forms that we need the borrower to review and sign. And then once we get signatures, we can move it on to our next step, which is pre-processing. Now, these disclosure forms are super important. They go over estimates for the loan. It'll go over your loan amount, estimated interest rates, amount due at closing, the estimated item or the estimated amounts for things we're going to need to order to get the loan processed. And then it also does have these disclosure forms also have some regulations involved with them too. It's going to let you know that we need to verify your income, we need to verify your employment, that we pulled credit, that we can't discriminate against you, things like that. So it is important for borrowers to look through that information. I know it gets skimmed pretty often, but that initial set of documents coming from your lender is super important.
So we try to emphasize that importance to the buyers. So we're like, hey, that clock is starting to tick, and they're not going to order anything probably until you get those disclosures back, because they're just excited they got the accepted offer, and now they're not getting that disclosure signed, and they're not getting the documents to you that you need. If you don't get that stuff, hey buyers, if you don't get that stuff done, we're going to be delayed, possibly be delayed for closing. So very important.
Yes.
Another good thing where the lender, local lender, and us as realtors can work closely together, because then we're going to know, hey, Jamie says, hey, we need this yet. Oh yeah, I just talked to him. It's us working together to keep the buyer on the right path. We're here for the buyer, and working together, we can make that happen. So make an offer, we negotiate, of course, get that accepted offer to the lender so they can start that process. And then in the meantime, we're helping navigate through the home inspection, which most everybody always gets a home inspection now, which I think is great. It's just we have to kind of go back to negotiations sometime during that home inspection process, because we're looking for things that are unforeseen, that I'm not climbing on the roof, the buyer's not climbing on the roof, I'm not climbing in those crawl spaces, I can tell you that. So we let the home inspectors do that. They come back, and every now and then we'll have a deal fall through as a result of the home inspection, but not very often. So that is certainly something we have to make our way through, and it takes constant communication with that lender to let them know that, hey, we're not through inspections yet. We don't want the appraiser to go out until we know we're through inspections, because we don't want the buyer to incur that cost of the appraisal if we're not through inspections yet. So just another great thing with the lender and the realtor working close together, so we can keep clear communication. And then appraisal and the loan processing, of course. So what do you think that on average the appraisal is taking? How long would you say in our area?
We're at about 3 weeks ish. Mm-hmm. Some we're seeing them a little bit sooner, but 3 weeks is pretty standard right now.
Sure. So I don't believe we've had too much of this in our area where property is not appraising, but in this marketplace that has been so competitive, in the last couple of years, we've certainly seen some of this going on, where a buyer will say, hey, we'll pay it so much above whatever it appraises for, and then they just have to have proof of funds for closing. I assume you've seen some of that, because I know you loan in various parts of South Dakota, but not so much here, at least in my perspective.
Yeah, I would agree. We are seeing that, and we have seen it in more in the Sioux Falls area, where the demand is just so much higher because there's just so many people I'm not seeing that necessarily around here on. And one thing that I really try to stress to buyers is if a property is listed for sale by a realtor, then that realtor has advised the seller on the asking price, on the listing price. So most realtors are not going to let a seller list a property for way more than it's going to appraise for. That's part of your guys' job. And I the realtors in here, and especially at ACE, do a really good job of listing homes where they're going to appraise. So we're lucky we haven't seen a lot of that here.
That is, you make a good point. It is very important. We take a lot of pride in spending a lot of time on that market analysis, which is constantly changing. I mean, I might do a market analysis, I might have done one a couple of weeks ago, and if they're not ready to list, I'll probably do another one when they come in, a couple of weeks down the road, because one new comp can change the whole outlook of that market analysis. So then, of course, step 10 is the closing process, and we always love to get to that point. So just a few things about step 1, know when you're ready to buy a house, track your finances, and view, know what your credit scores are. Jamie talked about like some of that. There's some free tools out there that you can go in and find out what your credit score is. And of course, if you go into the lender, they can help you with that as well. And also help decide what time is right for you. And of course, estimating what you can afford is very important. Like you said, a lot of people know what payment they want, so you can kind of work the numbers in there for them depending on their payment, correct?
Correct, yes.
So then, of course, we want you to contact your favorite ACE Realty realtor who can help you with the market knowledge, what's happening in the marketplace. It's constantly changing, like we just talked about. We'll give you the access to listings and show you what's available. I know, yeah, you can look on Zillow, you can look on realtor.com, but you might not see that. What we can see is, oh, you know what, that has an accepted offer, they're waiting on appraisal, or whatever the case might be. That's going to save you time. You don't want to be out there just going to open houses or looking casually and not be connected with a realtor, because we're going to help you get to those listings right away. And we can get you signed up with auto emails, which, because, sometimes we have a life, which I know is hard to believe, but sometimes we do. So if we can get you set up on auto emails, if I'm at a movie or somewhere like that and a new listing comes out, you know what? My clients are going to get an email rather than me have to sit there in the movie theater and send them. Of course, you're not supposed to have your phone in the movie theater, but then we'll help you with negotiation skills and guide you to your new home. So pre-approved, we've talked about this. Anything more just based on this, Jamie, that you'd want to bring up or comment on?
I just stress, that if you are thinking, get pre-qualified. If you fill out an application that doesn't commit you to purchasing a home, you can let a application hang out there and never purchase, and that's fine. But you do want to be prepared. Another thing too is that an application generally lasts for about 4 months. If you don't find something in 4 months, it's very simple for us to update that application, so you don't have to fill everything out again. It's just one little thing of click of a button to update. So
perfect. Thank you. All right. Criterion budget is very important, and you might have a buyer might have some of that done before they even get to you, Jamie, or before they get to me. But it is very important. And I guess, do you find most people kind of know what they want for a monthly payment, Jamie, or do you have to kind of walk them through that?
no, I would say that most people generally know what is scary to them and what isn't so scary. And I know that people get very hung up on interest rates. People in Midwest generally are rate sensitive. And I think it's because that's what you hear the most of is rates, 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 rates. But you definitely have to be comfortable with the payment. And yeah, generally when people come to me, if I say, okay, your monthly payment with tax and insurance included is going to be $2,500, and you can tell they just instantly are like, whoa, and then they know they have a gut feeling of what they're comfortable with.
What they want to be with. And so when you're sitting down with them in the beginning, you're going to kind of go through what their closing costs are, because that's a big thing. You know, they're like, okay, I always ask, do you have money saved up for closing costs and down payment? And of course, you guys, Jamie, you do a great job as a lender because you know all the different programs that are out there. Because like you said, you don't have to have 20% down. You don't have to have 10% down. You could get in to a program or a type of loan for less than that. So let's just say a conventional loan, $200,000, just on average for money they need to bring to the table, probably $8,000. Would that be for closing costs? Of course, it depends on a lot of factors. I know that, but
of course, yes. So $200,000. If you do a 5% down payment, that's $10,000. I would say that closing costs are going to run you maybe between $4,000 and $5,000. So I would say that on a $200,000 purchase, the average amount you're going to need to bring to closing is somewhere around 14,000 ish, somewhere around
including your down payment. So
correct.
Perfect. And you're going to get a credit of real estate taxes. And so, you know, Jamie will figure that all in there too. You'll get a credit from the seller for some of that. So definitely want to have some money saved up for sure for some of the closing costs, and then she'll fit you into the right down payment, of course. So once you kind of have that figured out, of course, we talked about that, we're going to start home shopping, and without very many houses on the market, it's not going to take us very long to see what's out there and to review everything with you, what's out there. But you want to be connected with a great realtor here at Ace Realty, so we can get you set up on auto emails and so forth, so you know immediately when that new listing hits the market, because we don't want to waste any time. We want to get you out there so that you can make an offer. That's the exciting and stressful part. And, you know, playing the waiting game while you're waiting to see if it's accepted or not accepted. And sometimes we get multiple offers, and that's a little stressful. But, you know, I always say, hey, do what you feel is right. If you offer this and you end up not getting it, are you going to kick yourself, or are you going to say, you know what, I gave it my best shot. That's as good as I could do. I'm fine with it. So those are the two questions to ask yourself, in my opinion. And that just, then I can really find out how badly they want it. If you really want it and you don't want anybody to get it, then I'll help you get there. But I just need to know the answer to that, because I don't want them coming back to me saying, hey, you pushed me to offer more than I wanted. There's just a lot of things that come into play there. Negotiate. This is something that we do night and day. We do it in our sleep practically. But there is a lot of negotiation that goes on, like we just talked. We negotiate again through inspections too. So this is where we can help out. We've been doing, you know, we do this every day. We understand the buyers do not do this every day. Just like you are an expert, Jamie, in your field, you do this every day. They do not. So that's why we're both here to help as experts. Home inspection, again, highly recommended. Most people are doing them. They are checking everything out about the property so that you can feel good about what you're making an offer on. And that allows you the opportunity to come back to the seller and say, whoa, I didn't know that this was an issue. This is concerning to me. Is there something you can help out with? And so if you're not able to come together after inspections and come to an agreement, then the buyer can request to get out of the contract and have their earnest money returned. We don't like to see that happen, but it does happen sometimes. Appraisal and loan processing. So typically, what do you think that's taking nowadays? Probably about 6 weeks, depending on the type of loan, but
I would say that we're in the maybe 30 to 35 day range for getting from purchase agreement to closing. With appraisals coming back in that 3-week range, that helps so much.
I bet. Perfect. So normally, like when we're writing an offer, we're probably going to put 45 days out typically, just to make sure we don't stress out the lenders and all those people too much. But that's pretty commonplace in our area. But I know sometimes in bigger cities, man, they can close in a couple of weeks if everybody's agreeable to it. So then the closing day, that's always exciting. We always suggest a final walkthrough of the property, make sure everything's good before we take them to the closing table. And as far as your role there at the closing table, Jamie, of course, you're bringing the money.
That's right. Right, I am. Or my team is making sure that the money gets there. So, and as a lender, I do my best to attend every loan closing that I'm a part of, just in case there's any last minute questions at the closing table. So and I always remind people that no question is a stupid question, because neither the realtor nor the lender wants you to have any sort of remorse or something that you didn't cover. So, and in my experience, while I try to be there, the realtor tries to be there as well at that closing table in case there's any last minute questions.
Right. So tell us about the buyers about the disclosure that they're going to have to sign. Another disclosure is very important if they don't get that signed 3 days in advance of closing.
Okay. So 3 days before closing, the buyer will be issued a closing disclosure. This lays out all of the final figures associated with the loan. And one of the most important numbers in this disclosure is the amount due at closing. We are required to give this to you 3 days before closing. And this is after the bank has reconciled with the title company. And hopefully that 3 business days will give you time to get the funds from your bank account to the title company, whether you bring a cashier's check or if you have funds wired. You're generally not allowed to bring a personal check to closing. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you're able to get a bank money order or a wire. A wire is sent to the title company instantly, but you do have to contact your bank to set that up. And then a cashier's check can be obtained from any of the local lending institutions in just a matter of 5 minutes or so.
It's always, again, another reason to use a local lender, because I've seen it where they're trying to get a cashier's check from maybe out of town or something like that. And it seems like sometimes you can get some glitches because there is, even though it's cashier's check, there's a hold of a day or so, and people aren't expecting that to happen. So that's always a little bit of, can be a nerve-wracking experience there at the end. Again, that's why it's so nice to work with local lenders, because we're like, okay, we got everything we need. Are you bringing the funds to closing? You don't really have to typically worry about wiring the funds if it's coming from a local lender necessarily. Of course, we always want to be in tune to wire fraud and what that's all about. You need to, with all wiring instructions, you need to talk to the title company or your bank and confirm all wiring instructions, because there's scammers out there pretending to be Jamie, pretending to be the lender, and say, hey, here's your new wiring instructions. And it looks like it came from Jamie, never came from Jamie. I've had people get text messages from me, but they're really not from me. And it looks like it is, so it's just a scary world right now in regard to that. So confirm all wire instructions by calling on the phone. I know we're used to texting, emailing, and so forth, but that's one thing. Definitely call on the phone. Correct, Jamie?
Yes, correct. Absolutely. And wiring instructions are specific to each bank. So they're very important and they're very detailed. So you'll want to make sure that those are exactly correct.
Okay. Well, I so appreciate you being on, Jamie. I'm so excited to see that you registered for the event. And so I'm very glad that I was able to tap into some of your expertise in regard to the 10 steps to home ownership, because we want to get more people into homes.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity, Angie. I really appreciate it.
You bet.